Well, welcome to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
And I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
Always a pleasure to host with you.
It is, man. It's always, and it's just good to be back.
Yeah.
In the studio, doing some things to help the community, conversation from people who are working all around the city and the state. Just happy to be back, man, to do Real People, Real Voices.
And this is our COVID safe set.
Yeah, COVID safe set. We're doing pretty good with it. I think our guests are going to be happy with it. And we got to do what we have to do to protect our guests when they come.
Yeah. Speaking of guests, we have some wonderful, they're not really guests, but we thank God for them, the sponsors who help to make the show go.
Yeah, they make it roll for us. And we just got to make sure we do what we need to do to let them know we appreciate everything that they do. Thank you to Miko and Associates for the work that you do to keep Real People, Real Voices on the air. Lavinia Summers, Home of Funerals, Marion County Public Health Department, thank you so much. Lee Kushel and Crawley for the work that you do. And then Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes, North Side Window and Gutter Cleaning, Fervent Care Christian Academy, and last but not least, His Place, Eatery. They say the fish is good on Fridays up there. I haven't been up there in a while, so.
You have to make a trip.
I got to make a trip. Got to make a trip.
And for those of you who are watching, if you want to see this show after it's over, as well as others that you might have missed, you can go to WHMB TV 40 on YouTube.
And like us on
Facebook. Yeah. Thank you all so much for the work that you do to help us stay on the air. Really appreciate you all. We started out with 0 sponsors.
Yeah.
Now we have 8.
8 sponsors. We're grateful. But let's thank everybody that's connected, those in studio, behind the cameras. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got some great guests coming up. Freetown Village is here, so you want to stay with us. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices, and we're joined by Freetown Village. And we want to welcome to the show Miss Ophelia Wellington. Mm-hmm. Thank you for being with us on today, and Miss LaKesha Lorraine.
Thank you for having us.
It's good to have you all here. So first out, what is Freetown Village?
Well, Freetown Village is a living history museum. So we research people, places, and events, and we develop a program to tell that story. So we use the performing arts, including theater, music, storytelling, workshops, special events to teach history. We've been around since 1982, so we're celebrating 40 years of continuous operations here in Indianapolis.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You need
awesome.
to be applauded for that. 40 years?
40 years, yeah. I attribute that to make parallels to Moses. You know, it's been a long time in the wilderness, 40 years, yes. And we've been to 80 of our 92 Indiana counties and all of the contiguous states. So we tour with our programs and we take them to where people are. Some people will come to Indianapolis, but everybody won't, so we can take our programs to where people are.
And you're being the founder and executive director. What precipitated, first of all, the creation of this and the name?
Well, actually, I'm gonna try to tell a short story, but actually was in reading the Old Testament where I learned about the importance of history, the history of a people. And as I read that, I was thinking, there was a lot of information. If it's in the Bible, it's important. And it was important for the children of Israel to know their story about being in bondage in Egypt, the wilderness for 40 years, the Red Sea, and all of that. If it was important for them to know, then it's important for us to know who we are as a people. But most of us are not going to retain a lot of information from a lecture. And I'm a former teacher, so I understand that involving people with the information, sharing it with them, getting them involved with retaining the information, they'll remember it. So that's basically the short story of how and why I thought it was important for us as a people to know our history, not as a lecture, but as an experience. The name Freetown represents, there were about 60 or more free towns in Indiana. These were towns that former enslaved people and free people of color lived throughout Indiana. Now, most of them were along the southern border, along the Ohio River, but they were towns where our people settled, established for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They had schools, churches, businesses, and it was a way for them to be free and have their own independence. So they were called free towns. There was no free town specifically in Indianapolis, but the largest percentage of black people in Indianapolis was on the west side near where IUPUI is, near the White River. So it's telling the story of our people, things that we did in a performance opportunity.
That's a great story. Certainly, it started out that way in Indianapolis. A lot different now, with regard to where a lot of us are. Going to what's called the Sign of the Times, and it's a one-woman show. So say more about Sign of the Times and what that's about and how people can access that.
Yeah, so just as Ms. Ophelia was touching on with the essence of who Freetown Village, Inc. is and how important it is for us to celebrate Black history, but more importantly to know Black history so that because we know where we've come from, we know where we can go and continue to go. So Sign of the Times is a one-woman play. It's going to be at the District Theater this March 25th through 27th. We do have tickets available on freetownvillage.org. They're $19, and this show is about the historic march for women's suffrage, for women's voting rights. So it talks about, and again, the stories for Freetown Village are based in Indiana. So it talks about the journey in women's rights through the women's suffrage movement. We do have different Freetown Village characters that are created there from different original, like real people, characters that are basically composites made up of real people that lived, and this show is really about that journey of the Black women's journey in voters' right. It is very different than the other, women that were a part of that, and that's something that we definitely need to remember and be cognizant of, especially with what's going on right now when it comes to voter suppression and the things happening in our world. We really have to be reminded of the fight so that we can continue to fight for what is rightfully ours.
Because I think what was interesting about that is younger people today don't realize that women have not always had the right to vote. And it was a 100-year process from about 1820s until 1920 that women were advocating for their rights to vote. Many men felt that women didn't need to vote, they didn't need to own land, they didn't need to do anything but be wives, mothers, and caregivers. And women say, you know what, we can think, we can make decisions, we can do some of these things. But it was a long, hard struggle. And when the 13th Amendment was passed that ended slavery in the United States, and 14th Amendment was passed that gave citizenship to many of the former enslaved people. Along comes the 15th Amendment, and a lot of the women, Susan B. Anthony, many people are familiar with her, they were advocating for women to get the right to vote when Black men got the right to vote. And when the 15th Amendment was finally passed and Black men got the right to vote and white women didn't vote, those women were hot. They were so upset, disappointed, disgusted. And so some of the Southern men were really upset because they wanted the women to vote to diffuse the men, the Black men who got the right. So if they had more white women voting, it would diffuse the Black men's right to vote. But it was a long struggle. A lot of the men said women had smaller bodies, they must have smaller brains, so they didn't need to vote. It was a whole lot. A lot of this comes out in the play, but it's really interesting to find out how women continued to persist And in August the 18th, 1920, is when the 19th Amendment was passed. And 2 months later, less than 2 months later, on November the 2nd, that's when women were first officially allowed to vote. And we have a photograph from the Indianapolis Recorder that shows black women on Indiana Avenue voting on November the 2nd, 1920. So it was an interesting story, change of events, how women rallied and supported each other and told that story.
All right, well, we'll hold that thought. We got to take a quick break. Stay with us. We have more with Freetown Village. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices, and we hope that you're enjoying the show so far. We're talking with Freetown Village. And LaKesha, you have a production company. It appears you've joined with Freetown to do this production.
Yeah, so my production company is Loving Life Productions, LLC, but I also have worked with Freetown just separately as an actress and a director. So I'm working with Freetown. You know, I've collaborated with them since 2015 is when I first started. It seems so long ago.
That's a good date.
I can't remember. It's been a while.
Been a number of years.
It's been a while, but I love working with Miss Ophelia and Miriam, and I think, you know, what they're doing in our city, I've never seen it before because, as Miss Ophelia said, it is an experience to be an audience member at one of our productions, to not only learn, but to be entertained. So those of you that do come to Sign of the Times, March 25th through 27th at the District Theater, it will be an amazing experience. Our actresses, Miss Latrice Young and Crystal V. Rhodes and Miss Ophelia just created just a really brilliant script that has all the history in there, but it still has humor, life, and things that are just so relatable even right now, although it is based on the day that women received the right to vote on November 2nd of 1920.
And how much are the tickets?
Tickets are $19.
So $19 for the 19th Amendment, and Indiana was the 19th state to be admitted into the Union.
Yeah.
So we thought that 19 was a good number to remember.
You're very creative, Miss Wellington. You know, I heard you say, and I knew the history of White River, but so many in Indianapolis don't know the history of White River and the reconstruction of it. And I think you can agree with that we see now. Mm-hmm. Is nothing new because it was very much a vibrant area when it was under Afro-American and people of the darker hue in those days with the businesses and all of that. And so it seems like the history of Indianapolis has always been able to work by the river. I don't know if that has any significance to you. It's always been that area, those areas. If you've been here a while, you can see it's probably have been, Miss Wellington, probably in construction for over, I would say over 40 years now, would you?
Well, the one thing about the river, most early cities were river cities because the rivers were used for navigation and transportation. And when former enslaved and free people of color settled in Indianapolis, they settled near the river because that's where the city of Indianapolis first started. And it was also a low-lying area, so it flooded often. And people that could afford to move away from the river did move away. But when the farmer slaves moved into Indiana, that's where they could find a place to be. Now, Indiana Avenue is one of the major arteries of Indianapolis, had more black-owned businesses at the turn of the century than any northern city. And I believe that was the impetus for Madam Walker locating in Indianapolis because, again, the crossroads, so many highways and roads were coming through Indiana at the time, through Indianapolis at that time. but also that vibrant Black economics.
Was here.
And we wonder what would it have been had the city not destroyed that vibrancy.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that. If the city had not destroyed that vibrancy, city and large conglomerates have come in and destroyed that vibrance of that total area, which now it has become an economic hub. And not only that, it's going to be a place of commerce again, but not at the level that we once knew it.
So tell us, what other programs does Freetown Village offer?
Well, Freetown has over 15 different kinds of programs. I guess the next biggest thing will be our summer day camp, where we teach our children about our history and culture and just really immerse them in education with a lot of hands-on activities. We have a summer camp of 6 weeks, and the children learn a lot. They learn a lot about what's going on in Indianapolis. They have the experience of really growing up. The unfortunate thing is, a lot of our kids have never been in an environment that celebrated them. And when they come to our camp, they're like they are special. And some of these kids don't want to leave because it's the warmth, the hugs. And even with COVID, we really struggle because we're huggers. And a lot of the kids, they just want to be touched. They want to be celebrated. So our summer camp, and then we have other programs. I know Juneteenth is being celebrated more this year. We have the Freetown Village Singers. They sing and interpret a lot of the Negro spirituals, folk songs, and so forth. We have some of the one characters. So it's researching information and determining what format that should be in. Should it be a theater piece? Should it be music? Should it be a workshop? So we're all of the times recreating and telling stories. We're also looking for people to become involved with Freetown, whether they're contributors, board members, volunteers, even actors, singers. So we have a place for people who want to be a part of learning about our history and performing or teaching our history. Most of our performers will talk about all the history lessons they've learned just by working for Freetown Village. And some of the people who work for Freetown had never voted before until they started learning this information, and they got the lecture from Miss Ophelia. No, you will vote. Have you voted today? You need to leave right here and go vote and then come back. But it's important for people to vote, to be aware of the issues, and to advocate for what is right. If you understand what the laws are, you can determine what you want to happen for you. But if you don't know what the laws are, you just kind of take whatever comes at you. You're just okay. But you have to read and understand and ask questions. And we ask a lot of questions.
Thanks for being intentional.
Yeah, we have to be intentional.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's very important to hear you talk about that, and then to emphasize, if you don't, you need to, and that's voting. That is, and that's what we're all about, because that right is being arrested and accosted in so many ways that as often as we can talk about it and keep it before the public, we have to be intentional about it.
Well, you all have been great guests. Thank you for joining us on today.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
This has been fun.
I'll see you down by the riverside.
And thank you all for joining us on today. We have the rundown coming up next. Stay with us. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to Real People, Real Voices. I'm your host, James Jackson.
I'm your co-host, Pastor Wayne Moore.
And I'm your producer, Curtis Baker.
Yes.
And you have the sponsors list.
I do, and we're so glad that they are our sponsors, Tamiko and Associates, Lavinia Summers Home of Funerals, and Marion County Public Health Department, Northside Window and Gutter Cleaning, Lee Castle and Crawley, Al's Modern Clothing and Shoes, plus Fervent Care Christian Academy. And on Fridays, you can catch me at His Place Eatery, located at 30th and Charlotte.
Yeah.
You go every Friday?
Well, you know what? I kind of, I cheat every once in a while.
I'll have to meet you over there.
Yeah, I cheat every once in a while, but yeah, mostly every Friday.
Okay.
Great show.
Yeah, Freetown.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great show. The origination of Freetown, I thought it was very interesting how it how it was brought into fruition, and then to hear how the White River area has been a historical mainstay for Marion County for years and years, and now we see it being rejuvenated again through some other areas of economic development. It's phenomenal how that worked out.
Yeah. And the history that Miss Ophelia gave us was pretty vast.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was pretty vast. It was very interesting. It shows, which we don't hear all the time, about black economics, black businesses, black homeowners, etc. She gave it to us in a way to where we have something to be proud of. A lot of that history has been covered up, and Freetown is on a mission to keep it before people.
We hear about Black Wall Street, but
Yeah.
we don't often hear about Indiana Avenue or Freetown.
No.
Particularly here in Indianapolis.
And there were Freetowns everywhere.
Yeah, but particularly in Indianapolis.
But yeah, because I never knew the meaning of it until today. I knew of it, but not to the extent that she gave it.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I'm actually going to try to make sure I go to that program because a lot of things I just discovered today that I'm like, wow, where was I at? Very interesting.
I think they've been around 40 years.
Right.
We didn't get to ask them the question of what's next, but maybe the next thing for them is sponsoring the show.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Let's give them a call and write that down.
Yeah, that's what you need to do. Yeah, 40 years, that'd be a good sponsor.
Yeah.
But it's great information.
Yeah, it is.
Right,
great
right,
information,
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you all for being with us. We really appreciate it. Until next time, we like you, we love you, you make us smile. We'll see you next time.
30 seconds. I got to talk about my Aunt Jeanette.
Hurry up.
Got to talk about my Aunt Jeanette. I'll be in Kokomo soon, Aunt Jeanette. I know this is your favorite show. You guys, she loves you. You're going to have to come with me.
Yeah, show the picture again.
Well, they have it on screen,
Oh.
but I'm going to show it anyway. That's my aunt,
87.
87 years old, with the cup.
That's his favorite aunt.
That's my favorite aunt. Actually, it's my only aunt.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why she's my favorite.
Bye-bye, Aunt Jeanette.